Hey everyone, welcome to Love Your Body Podcast, and I am on here today with special guest Nikki Lickstein, but also now it's Nikki Allen,
Yes,
right?
newly, as of literally like last month.
I know. Oh my gosh. And for those of you who don't know, Nikki's been a client for the past 2 years. She's had an amazing transformation. You've probably seen her on all of my stuff and just crushing it, strength goals, life goals, just
Thanks,
doing
girl.
all the things. So I have to give you, all those flowers because I'm just so proud of you. And you've just been such a light, and it's been really special to watch,
Couldn't have done it without you.
Thank you. I appreciate
You're
that.
like, I know.
You're like, I mean, but no, it's you really do embody the mission, and that's been huge to watch, and but yeah, we're gonna talk all about her stuff, and we were just talking about you had your first day back to school, right?
Yeah, I mean the kids aren't here yet.
Okay,
but we had back to school night last night.
Okay,
July 31st, which is really early in my opinion.
I feel like it's earlier and earlier every year. We didn't low key go back to school till the end of August, like when I was growing up.
Well, it was supposed to be tonight.
Okay.
But in Tennessee today's the voting day, so they didn't want to like impede the teachers.
Yeah.
So they moved it to yesterday.
Okay.
The kids come back next week. This whole week I've been there setting up my room, doing team planning, all of the everything. So we're getting back into the craziness.
Well, tell them, if you're cool with us sharing where you teach and who you teach and all that stuff.
I am a 4th grade exceptional education teacher in Metro Nashville Public Schools. I work at an elementary school in Antioch. It's called J.E. Moss.
Okay.
Go Mustangs. But yeah, I have my master's in special education. From MTSU.
Yeah, you were up in MT today. When you walked in, I was like, because I'm from the borough. So I was like, is that like, are you trying to get on my good
it's
side,
almost
Nikki?
getting
Like,
blue.
No, literally. I'm like, I feel unprepared. Like, what is this? But no, it's so funny. So because I thought I low-key thought you just
Today
went
was
to
the first day.
Well, I thought you just went to Belmont. I didn't know that you went to MTSU also. Like,
Queen.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Oh, she went to undergrad at Belmont.
Okay.
I went to undergrad at Belmont I majored in songwriting and minored in music business.
Yeah.
Then I did my master's at MTSU.
Maybe I do remember that because you
I
did
met
drive.
my husband.
That's
at
right.
Belmont.
Okay.
And then I had to commute to MTSU, which
that
was
is right. And
a struggle bus going to Murfreesboro from Nashville multiple times a week.
But that was only was that for how long? Was that for
the
2?
master's program was 2 years.
Okay, so it was.
But
like
I graduated college early, so all kind of a blur.
Yes.
But we survived.
Oh my
gosh. We got that degree. We got them both the degrees.
Right.
And now we're in the workforce.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, tell everybody because and you just got married, which was beautiful. And I am so upset that I was not able to go to that wedding. It looked incredible. You had it in so it was like. It
was in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida.
Right.
Which is where my family's at, where I'm from. So my grandparents, everybody's in South Florida.
Yeah.
So it's just easier to do it down there.
For sure.
Plus, I kind of always pictured getting married in Florida. So, I mean, Tyler didn't put up a fight, you know.
It was the vibe.
Yeah.
Vibe. You're like, not Shelbyville.
Yeah.
We're not doing that. For low-key, that's where her husband is from, which is hilarious because on some level, we're not related, but like, we kind of related. Yeah. So, like, learned that at the Christmas party. That was fantastic. But that's just how it is there.
It's small town.
It's small town.
Yeah.
And so that's why when, like, you originally told me he was from there, I was like, we might be related. And you kind of laughed at me. And I was like, nah, but like low-key. Like
you said, but we are.
But yeah, because like my sister-in-law's family is like somehow related to his family. And like, anyway, it's like cousins and things. Yeah. So whatever. But anyway, he's great, obviously, but like telling them like I genuinely have met so many people, like even when you were just like dating, because I met him then too. I was like, man, like he seems like so great. Had a good energy about him and just like excited for you and like excited because
like he's all right.
Well, yeah, because you never know when you're gonna meet a client's like person.
Yeah, and then you're gonna like if you don't approve of them, then it's like probably like, oh, I'm just gonna keep my mouth shut.
No, literally, like
you
just have to kind of like write it out.
Yeah, that's with friends too, though.
Yeah,
sometimes they be hyping up their man.
Yep.
And then you meet him and you're like, this ain't it.
This ain't it. Yeah. And so he's it. So I love that. And the wedding went great. Everything was good. You felt successful. I saw some, those dress pictures of you from the back.
That's
and
literally like what made me kind of get started with you. Yeah. Was that I knew I'd be getting married in the near realm. Yeah. And I wanted to feel my best. Yeah. So like everyone's always like, oh, shredding for the wedding, blah, blah, blah. But that wasn't it. Because like Tyler has been with me at my heaviest and loved me. Yeah. And loved my body throughout.
Yes. Which is so special.
Yes. And it was 2022. I just had my 22nd birthday.
Yeah.
And him and I, we kind of had a plan. We've been dating for a couple of years at the point, and knew that when I finished my master's program, after I was done with school and like had a big girl job, I would be getting engaged, which was going to be in 2023.
Okay.
So in my head, I'm like, I know I'm getting a ring next year.
Right.
At some point.
Yeah.
And I want to give myself enough time to be able to actually sustainably like do this thing.
Right.
And I wanted to feel good for me and just feel healthy. And, it wound up being more than just that. Like, obviously, like I never like would say was strong was a word I used to describe myself as. But now when I'm doing my affirmations, it's up there. Like one of the first couple ones, like I'm strong, you know, and just like fighting for what I want, all that stuff came along with it. And the mindset change of from skinny to strong. And, the weight came off, but it was a lot of other stuff.
Right.
And then I did get engaged in 2023. So then by the time I had my wedding, which was summer of 24, I felt great. And I was able to wear a dress and like feel good about the pictures. And, I don't know. It was really nice.
Yeah, you looked stunning. And that's the biggest thing, too. Is like, I mean, I've had people reach out to me and be like, hey, my wedding's in 3 months. Like, I need to do this. And I'm like, yeah, like I can help you feel better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we can sweat, we can get a routine, but like, no. Like,
and I had like mini goals between, I knew like, okay, I'm graduating.
Yeah.
And at my graduation, I felt great.
Yep.
But since graduation to my wedding, there was a difference.
100%.
But there was a difference from when I started to my graduation, like things like that. And I wanted a lifestyle change. I wanted something that was going to be sustainable. Right. And just, I've done like the quick fixes in the past. I think most people have tried that when you go through weight fluctuation or whatever. Yeah. And it wasn't in the long run what I needed. Right. And this has proven to, at least for now, been, maintainable.
Which is awesome. And for those listening, so Nikki did, because we started like 3 days a week, like in person. And then you went into doing like online programming, virtual, but then also coming in. So like she's done pretty much like all of my, because I tell people. I've done
lots of combos.
Yes,
of
like
things.
I have different customized programs for anybody, literally. And that's why I try to tell people like it's not cookie cutter. Like it is like, for even if you don't have equipment or if you have, want to do your workouts for a while, like you did them in your apartment.
Well, that's like Georgia when she was first, Georgia and I do songwriting together. Yeah. We were introduced through a friend and she had been seeing me, kind of changing over the months and seeing my stuff online with you. And so she was like, tell me more. Yes. How much does it cost? But I was like, it really depends. She got all sorts of, I said, you have to figure out what you want to do. Yes. And because at first I was doing every 3 days in person. That's back when you were at that.
Yeah. The other personal training too. Yeah.
And then I actually live about like a little over a mile from there. So I was walking there, doing it, and then walking back, which was just like really nice cool down. Kind of got me into, cool. Yeah. I'm also an ankle weights girl.
She is the one you see with the ankle weights.
With the ankle weights. And then when you had the LYB, I started doing virtual, and I have a gym in my apartment building, and we would like Zoom, and then I would come in like probably once a week, so like 4 times a month to do it in person. We could kind of do more fun stuff when I came in, lift a little heavier. Yeah. But I felt like it was nice because I knew I had a better grasp on what to do. Because if I had done virtual at the beginning of the program and you wrote down like 10 whatever, I'd be like, I don't know what that is. Right. Even if I Googled it, it'd be like intimidating. Yeah. Versus now I kind of know what's up. So
yeah, you took the time to learn form, learn the proper execution of things. Like, and that's the biggest thing too, is like I always ask people, I'm like, you have to know yourself, right? So like you knew like, hey, I need that accountability. I need to show up somewhere. I like a schedule. Yeah. I need to be like be present, and you like literally to the T, Nikki. Like I'll say this because like it's my 7-year anniversary of my business and everything, and we'll
happy
talk. Happy
birthday, Danny D Fitness!
Thank you. I like to celebrate the whole month essentially. Like I don't like to celebrate the one day, but like when I think back on it. And I'm not just saying this because you're like here, but really and truly, you were one of the top like clients that I've ever had who genuinely like followed the programming. Do you know what I mean? Like from drinking, you know, the ACV in the morning to the fight to like actually like being immersed in it of like, okay, I will get my steps in like in between the sessions. Like you were on it and then you would send me videos and you still send me videos and like showing me like that you're getting your movement in. I love that because one, it makes me not have to sit here and wonder, you know what I'm saying? Like, oh, I haven't heard from Nikki in like a week. Like I wonder what she's doing. You know what I mean? And, you know, and it was such a good back and forth. And I love that. Yeah. And it was just real. And I've always wanted people just to be like open about it, you know, and that really helped like me, you know.
I really tried to just like take everything you said because I really viewed it as an investment in myself. Yeah. You know, I was like, okay, I am putting money. Yeah. I am putting time. Right. I'm showing up for me. Yes. So, you know, no one else is going to. Yeah. That's kind of what came down to it. Yeah. And I'm sure we'll get into this, I have a whole slew of mental health things, but when I first came to you, I had been in, you know, the psychiatric hospital not even a year prior. I mean, it had been somewhat recent. Right. And so I was still kind of fresher out, if you will. Yeah. And so this helped me mentally as well. Obviously, like, you know, moving your body physically helps with the mental thing. Right. But I just feel like you know, the ACV, I remember the first time I had some in the morning, I literally was like, this ain't it. I can't. Right. But now I do it every morning. It's not that big of a deal. Yeah. I also took way too much the first time though. Right. Because I didn't like measure her out. I was like, I'm just going to take a swig. Yeah. And then I was like, no. No, we got to measure. We're getting that tablespoon. Yes, tablespoon out. Yep. And the fight, like at first, you know, I started with blueberry. The OG. Now I'm on the strawberry train. Yeah. But I have fight every day. Still have fight every day. Yeah. Tried it a couple times one day, but we'd have it once a day now. We have it one serving, which is great, and that's all you need. Yeah. Same with like, you know, in terms of sending you stuff, like I get the same feeling. Like do guitar teaching like lessons, and so like I'm always kind of like, have y'all been practicing since I saw you last? Right. Yeah. I'm always like, feel free to send me stuff, and you know. Occasionally people will take me up on it and send me like a video of them playing and I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, whatever. But
it makes you feel good. It makes you feel like, okay, they actually listen, like they're actually doing what I've asked. Yeah. Because you know that it's going to help them. Mm-hmm. You know it's going to make them a better guitar player. And like, same with me. It's like, I know that by them getting their walk in or even in, no matter how small it might seem, it is huge in the grand scheme of things. So once I started seeing you do that, I'm like, man, like she's like following in, like she's doing great. Like, if she stays on this, like she will accomplish her goal. I mean, there was shit I definitely, I don't know if we're allowed to cuss on this. Yeah, of course. That I definitely took longer to come around to, like protein or whatever, which, you know, I think there's some stuff that's easier than others. Right. But eventually, you know, it's like. Well, and that's what it is, though. It's a building block. Yeah. If you would have came out and been perfect with the food, perfect with the, you know, everything, I would have been like, whoa, like this is, you know what I mean? That almost never happens unless someone is prepping for like a show or something more like whatever. And that's why I was like, you know, it is one of those things that like as you learn that okay, I feel like I can handle, you know, the walks, I can feel like I can handle the cardio, the strength training. Okay, now I can add in, you know, a little bit more protein here, or now I can learn to like get away from, you know, I know a lot of the pull that you had was the scale. Yeah. Like, you know, and like that whole, and which most women do, and most people listening do have that issue of like, I need to weigh every day, or I don't know how, I'm not in tune with my body, so I don't know how I'm feeling. When it's like, you started to really notice like, okay, actually, like I feel better when I eat this, or I don't feel, you know, or with the water too. That was, you know, you got into that because you used to not carry. Gallon a day. Yep. And that's been great. And that's huge. And so it's like, it really was just putting the pieces together, but you are patient enough to be like, okay, I can keep doing, like, I can stay in it versus with most people, especially your age, like, don't. And I will say, like, just the idea of, like, consistency wins every time. Yeah. Like, just keep showing up for yourself. Yeah. And there's a video of you on your Instagram, and you're doing, like, the rowing machine or something, and it's, like, I don't know, I want to say, like, 2 years later, or I don't know the difference. Yeah. But you could see, obviously, transformation. Yeah, and it was just about showing up on the days you don't want to be there. Yeah. And whatever. And so, like, for me, it was, like, consistency. Like, half the time I didn't want to do it. But I was like, you know, if I do it half-ass, it's better than me not doing it at all. If 100%. I go to the gym and it's not perfect and not PRing everything and whatever, I'm still better off at the gym than sitting down at the couch. Yes. And, like, that was huge for me, too. Right. Well, again, it's it's changing the mindset around everything you're told, like via social media, what your parents maybe have said or whatever, right? And so I know that it's a lot to ask of my clients, and that's where it's like, I know that this isn't for everybody because not everybody's ready for it. Yeah. But the fact that you were like, okay, like we're going to listen to this girl, you know what I mean? Like, you know, we're going to trust in her and like give it our all. And that's all I've ever asked of anybody is like to show up is 90% of the battle, but then also to be like, okay, like I'm going to actually fight for it. Yeah. And so that's what you did. And despite everything, despite the medicine changes, despite, you know, family stuff, despite, you know, whatever was going on, you know, school, work, whatever, it's like you continue to keep showing up and build that routine and regimen, which is, again, it's not just a workout. Like there are people who work out and there are people that live a healthy lifestyle regimen. It's different. And people don't realize that. And it's like, oh, yeah, I work out. It's like, no. But like, do you have a healthy lifestyle regimen? Yeah. You know, and that's like when I'm looking for a man, I'm like, healthy lifestyle regimen. I don't need just somebody that work out. It's like randomly, you know what I mean? Or when they're angry and need to like de-stress. It's like, no, like you got to live this life and make it realistic to you. And nothing I feel like I ever asked of you was unrealistic. Yeah. Right. And so it was like, that was again, you know, just like I said, like you even walking out, I'm just going to walk up from my apartment. I'm like, even the added steps, like checking it off. And that was so cool. Yeah. You know, so I love that.
I feel like part of what drew me to like trying to do this with you as opposed to like all the other people who, you know, offer services like that is like real recognizes real. Hey, like I was like, she's, you know, like, no, what's up? And also, I had glitter in my hair at the time. You be having glitter in your hair. So I was like,
shout out to Marissa. Helping me see my clients. Like,
but yeah, I feel like I was able to get that from you that like, it wasn't just working out. It was like more than that. And I needed more than that. And I've reached a place I never thought I would get to in that like, I'm not on a diet. Right. I eat whatever I want. Like I tell that people, I'm like, I literally eat whatever I want. Yeah. And I don't even really like think all that much about it. Right. You know, I don't restrict myself. Awesome. I just am able to like intuitively fill my body. Yeah. Because I know that I'm getting my movement in every day. Yes. And so it's fine. You know, I'm not like going hard on the weekends and then being upset on Monday. Right. You know, whatever. Now, but I'm also not doing the things I used to do. Like I'm not having a pint of Ben Jerry's at a time, you know? Yes. But I think that's because I'm allowing myself to have a little bit here, a little bit there, like, and the whole, you know, in moderation thing, it's like you hear that, but it's taken so long to actually
implement it.
Yes. Yeah. And now I feel like I'm at a place where I can.
And that's huge too, because literally somebody had said something about, they're like, yeah, like Nikki's like just been like crushing it and doing so well. And they're like, I don't know if we were talking about like food or whatever. And I was like, well, truly, I mean, like Nikki still eats ice cream. Oh. Like, because I was talking about like I think
French
good foods.
Fries,
yeah, like, I was talking about good foods, bad foods. Like how I don't like to talk about good foods, bad foods. Like that's ridiculous. Like it's not that they're bad. Yeah, it's that again, some are more nutrient dense, and some have a purpose, and some have whatever it might be. But again, it's about how you abuse it and how you use it.
And I'm sure if I ate cleaner, I would lose more weight. But it's not the point. I feel good and I like food.
Yes, exactly right.
I'm not about to make myself not have, truth be told. I had a potato bar at my wedding. Yeah. With literally all different kinds of French fries, tater tots, waffle.
And I missed it for the freaking expo. Potato, missed it for the expo.
I had a whole potato bar. Like that's me, like I'm not going to not do that. Right. But I don't know. It has been interesting. I think some people like assume that I am on some sort of like diet or anything. Like I'm.
Well, because they can't comprehend that like you have been putting in the work for 2 years, but then also that like once you get to a point where you can maintain and you feel good, and that's like what you're doing now. It's like again you can still see progress. Yeah. But like in terms of like not having to stress about everything you're eating, right, or having stress about getting to the workouts or having to like feel like every workout's a chore or whatever, right? Like all these things that you built this strength around your movement and routine and regimen, like has allowed you to be able to have that freedom. And that is where like when I started my business, like I never wanted anyone to feel like I ever felt, which was one, alone in my journey, but then two, that like I was always at a place or that like I couldn't accomplish all these things, you know what I mean? And And so when I started it, it was one of those things where like, I don't want people to feel like they have to be on a diet to like find purpose, to where they feel like they're killing themselves every day. Cause like, that's what the coaches always told me. They wanted me at this. And I remember distinctly the year before I started my business, I was working with a coach and like, he had me on like a low calorie, thing. And I remember going to Bonnaroo. I got my first like gig at doing like Move Fit. And I was like, I finally made it after 4 years of working Bonnaroo. And I'm like, okay, let's go. And I was there and I was with my graphic designer and who's just like this gay friend of mine and whatever. And basically like we're sitting there and he was super cool, but he like, we were both looking at each other and we were like, okay, so like what would we do if like, if somebody came up to us, like, I mean, we're in the VIP section, y'all. So it's not like we were like, whatever, but we weren't in the streets of Bonnaroo, but we're sitting there and I'm like, if somebody came up and like tried to take something from me, I don't look strong. Like I'm at the goal weight that the trainer had for me, but I was like not happy about it and I didn't look strong. So because I never had a goal weight, I had a visionment of like looking like this. Like I was like seeing the muscles, like seeing, the legs, all this stuff. And like, especially
shredded.
Right? Hey, she knows. But like that. And when I looked at those pictures, I'm like, I mean, yeah, I can still find love for myself, but like, I don't look strong.
Yeah.
And it was because I was literally losing muscle. There was no talk about your protein goal or this or that or whatever. It was just like eat less. And then I was literally at that time in my life, I was doing Move Fit like 3 times a day. I was teaching class. I was running 5 miles. And then working out as well, strength training. Like,
that's a lot.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you're talking, I didn't wear a Fitbit or Apple Watch at that time, but you're talking thousands of calories burned. And I was only eating like 1,400 calories a day. Like, you know what I'm saying? And that was because a man like told me whatever. And so whatever, but told me like to do this and that happening over and over and over again. And it was just like, bruh, like that's not what my body needed. So I was losing muscle, not feeling as strong. And I was just like, I never want women to feel like this, like how I did.
Yeah.
And so I had tried so many things and tried so many classes. I did all the group fitness stuff, whatever, and then like would either, like just feel hurt or like wouldn't feel good in my body or wouldn't see progress. And so I tried so many things and that's where I was able to like cultivate and be like, okay, it really comes down to building a routine and regimen. Yeah. And it's like, no one ever taught me about that. There's like, just work out on these like 5 days, 6 days a week and like whatever. And it was like, cool. But like, what, like, you know what I mean? Let's elaborate on that because there's something about, again, efficient movement and then for your body too. And like what your goals are, And so anyway, so everyone just always assumed I wanted to like lose weight. And I was just like, no, bro, like I'm trying to look strong.
Yeah. And I know like I'm of the understanding that like, I don't have to, if I eat a cookie, that doesn't equal I need to go run it off.
Correct.
However, I'm able to recognize like, hey, I've gone a little heavy on, the desserts or the whatever the past couple of days. It'll make me feel better.
Yes.
If I at least go for a walk.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's like,
it will.
And
exactly.
It balances out, you know? And so that's one thing. Also, I feel like the community of just like women that you've established, like even just like the Instagram group, like knowing that you could always kind of reach out there and people are so receptive. Like, I think it speaks to like the kind of like atmosphere you've developed. And even when you're like in and out of the LYB and like the person after you's coming in, it's like the struggle's real. They see you huffing and puffing. They know that's about to be them in an hour. Like,
bruh, so. I cannot with you. You left one day before I had like a new client and Nikki's like, good luck. And like walks out and I was like,
I'm scared of them.
Yeah, like, I was like, okay, but I knew that they were cool, so I was like, it's fine. But it was hilarious because I was like, thanks for that. I was like, it is not that bad.
People are like, oh, who like taught you how to work out all this crap? I'm like, the first time my little, what is it, trial or assessment with you, I almost threw up. Yeah. I literally, and that's when I knew you were the real deal. Because I was like, this is what I need. Is somebody pushing me to my limit, you know? I used to be like you, like I danced growing up, growing up. I was like fairly, in shape. I was always curvy, but whatevs. We owned it, we rocked it. Right. And then in college, pandemic, breakup, enter sobriety, all these things I'm sure we can get more into, but I kind of turned to food because I was like, well, I'm not going to go to jail for having Ben and Jerry's. Right. It's better than vodka.
Yeah, you were replacing it. Yeah.
And I didn't realize at the time that I was replacing kind of an addiction for an addiction, if you will. Yeah. And so I put on more weight than I'd ever I wasn't used to that.
Right.
And I didn't know what to do about it. Cause I was like, well, I'm not about to go back to ballet 25 hours a week. That's what I had done in the past.
100%.
So I didn't have a way of like kind of going forward without, I tried a diet, I tried this, and I was like, I don't know.
Right.
I don't know what to do.
Well, they just leave you hanging, kind of. Because, like, I was a similar way because I graduated high school and, like, so I had made it into a dance college. But then my parents were like, nah, you ain't going to California. Like, you ain't going to survive. And I was just kind of like, okay, so where am I going to go? So I ended up going to UT, and and it was one of those things where like, okay, I auditioned for the dance company, got to the last round, like didn't make it for the dance team, and at the time there wasn't a dance company that I knew about. I didn't figure that out until like the year later, but basically like I went to the gym one time in my like oversized sorority tank top, and with my roommate that I would say was like the standard, whatever of beauty. And like, she was kind of edgy and whatever, but like, and she's like, okay, I'll go with you. And we're standing there and I'm on the treadmill and I started sweating. I broke out my first sweat. And this is like, again, after like freshman year. So only like 5 months or so of not dancing, but I was drinking and like eating, and I was so uncomfortable. When I tell you, I was like, everyone's looking at me. I can't breathe. I'm about to have a panic attack, which I never had before, whatever. I got really sad and stuff like before, but I was just like, oh no, I left and I didn't step foot in that gym until the next year when I auditioned to be a group fitness instructor. And the only reason I auditioned was because a girl in the sorority, she was like talking about it to everybody that she was going to audition, and she didn't have like a slender body. She was like kind of more stacked. And I think she did like softball growing up or whatever. And so I was like, okay,
she was
like
athletic.
Yeah. And I was like, all right, like that's cool. And I kind of was listening to her. I was like, oh, what are the auditions? And she told me that like, so for the group fitness studio, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's a studio. Because I didn't know that. I thought it was just a bunch of equipment and gym stuff. So I was like, oh my gosh, like, that would be awesome because like I danced all my life, whatever. So I could like whatever. I was like, oh, do you have like a book like I could study? She's like, no, like I'm going to be using it. And I was like, okay, I'm definitely going. So I literally showed up to the audition.
What sorority were you in?
Delta Zeta.
Okay.
Easy DZ.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, that's fine. But the thing is like with that, I was a legacy because my half sister. So that's why I did that.
Okay.
Because it meant a lot to my dad, and you can meet people and whatever.
So you went to try out for this.
So I went to the group fitness thing because I was living in a sorority house, and so I was like, okay, and basically that kind of spiraled everything. So I went to that and I got it, and so it was my first. So you had to go through several interviews, and like 3 of us got the position, and got paid $9 an hour.
Okay, she making bank.
Yeah, so it was like, so my freshman year I worked in a sub shop, fun fact, and so I would just like take the subs home with me and like eat that and then like drink and not living the best life. And then sophomore year, it literally, like I said, it all changed, and I got that position, that job, and so I started making up classes. Like I got certified in like so many things, but I started teaching cycling. I taught shadow boxing. I taught insanity. I taught which now is I called it cardio hip hop, and now it's Move Fit. I taught Killer Core, so some of those classes are still there to this day.
Super cool.
So I became one of the most advanced instructors there. And what was so cool though is it literally, well, not cool, it sucked, but people would come into my class and they'd look around like, so where's the instructor? And I'm like, do you think I'm wearing this headset because I'm like Britney Spears via Halloween?
So like, watch and learn.
But no, I literally was like, hey, so you can go grab a mat. And we'll get started here in like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And I just created in that room. I mean, there's videos of me. I'm teaching 75, 100 people. Like,
I love that.
Yeah. And so I fell in love with it. And then I realized that there was no like female trainers out on the floor. And so the next year I said, hey, I would love to, make $11 an hour to be certified and do personal training.
Leveling up.
And so now that's for certified. So, hey, everyone, thank you so much for liking, listening, and subscribing to the Love Your Body podcast. It means so much when you share these episodes of powerful just testaments and journeys and all different bodies and sizes. So I appreciate you so much. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to the Patreon where you can see exclusive episodes and get discounts and all different types of things and hear but never before, seen things and all the details and everything with that. And you guys, if you haven't yet tried Fight Energy, please check it out. It is the bomb. Either Team Blueberry, Team Strawberry, and or you can be both. But you can get that at my website, as well as you can always follow everything going on with the 7-year anniversary and the new book out on Amazon called How to Love Your Body Throughout. So please, if you get, end up checking that out and buying that, tag me. Let me see that you did the activities in there. You read the book. It would just just means so much. And please leave a 5-star review. And if you ever need training or anything from me, feel free to email me at danny@danityfitness.com. And I'll see you later.
Hi, I'm Nikki Allen, although that's very recent. So you can find me at www.nikkilickstein.com, or you can follow me on Instagram at nikki.lickstein and catch up with my music. Thanks.
So they were really good. They're like, so no, you're really good at group fitness. And I was like, yeah, but I could be good at personal training too.
Yeah.
And so like, okay. So anyway, so I did it, and literally it was so beautiful because I got to just learn. I got to work with like, faculty and students, and just different bodies and different things, and really learn. And so that was really cool, and that changed my whole trajectory. I then joined a business fraternity. Like it helped elevate everything.
Yeah.
And I was like running like you. So like I would run from my apartment. I think it was senior year. I would run there like to the gym, train and like teach people, and then run back. In Knoxville. And it was so sick. Or I would run a class. And like, I did half marathon there. Like, so it was that whole thing of like, and this is to Becky, I think 2012, 13, 14. Yeah, like 2014. And before I graduated in 15. And like, I'm like sitting there taking a picture every day. And I'm like, okay, going for a run. And like my best friend, Alexis, still to this day, like she was the only person that would comment. She's like, go D. She's like, get it. You know what I mean?
It's a real one.
But for real. And she still does, and she comes to events and stuff like that. But it was just like, I've literally been in it. Mm-hmm. Like, and so it's like when you would do stuff, I'm like, man, that reminds me of like me. You know what I mean? And it was so cool. And so reflecting back on everything, it's like I never, like I knew that I had all these dreams. And I talk all this big, talk to everybody. And it was so funny because I never knew how it was going to play out or how, but I just knew if I kept working hard and I kept showing up for myself, that like it was going to happen. Yeah. And so I wanted to talk to you about, because, you are also a songwriter and everything like that. And I know it can be sometimes a little discouraging. Okay. So, how has that kind of been, being here in Nashville? And
well, I'll say two things. One is that I also auditioned for dance team I started college at University of Miami as a freshman. I didn't get onto the team. I wound up joining like a dance club that they had there that we, had a recital, whatever. It was fun. Later wound up being on the Belmont dance team. Yeah. But we never had a single in-person performance because that's when the pandemic happened. So we met virtually. So it wasn't really, the experience that you'd imagine. But I relate in that, you just say like, I'm a very big believer of like, the harder you work, the luckier you get. And like how you said, like, I didn't know how it was going to work out, but I knew if I kept working hard, it was going to work itself out, Right. And I try to remind myself that in terms of the songwriting thing, because it is really easy to doubt yourself, especially in a town like Nashville where there's a lot of talented people. Yeah. And in my middle school band room, I went to like an art school. I've always been a band nerd, Yeah. There was a sign that my band director had up that said, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And I stared at it like every day. And that's what I have to remind myself sometimes when I'm in town. It's like, maybe I'm not the most talented one in the room, but I can be the most hardworking. Right. All the better if I'm both. Right. Oh, yeah, exactly. But you can't control what you can't control, And so it does get discouraging. I try to keep my head up. Thankfully I have a good support system. Like, my husband's amazing. Yes. And, I'm fairly close with my family, my sisters.
And 2 sisters.
I'm the middle child. Yeah. And I don't know. I think it's just the idea of like, keep going. It's like, I might write my best song tomorrow. Right. I don't know. Right. And it is hard to trust in the process. I'd be lying if I didn't say like I have a once a month like little meltdown of like, am I doing this? Is it? My therapist is used to hearing the same old, know. She's like, oh, we're gonna go on this one.
This is the time.
But then here we are.
Right. So did your parents like support in this, like with moving here, the songwriting, all the stuff?
Yeah. So they definitely have supported my music since a young age.
Okay. Awesome.
When I was 4 years old in preschool, a little girl brought in a guitar for show and tell. Okay. It wasn't even like it was like a toy guitar from Target type of thing. But I know most 4-year-olds like don't decide what they're going to do, but I had like an epiphany. And I was like, that's that's what I'll be doing for life, you know?
Love that.
And so I started asking for guitar lessons. They're like, you can't read. Like, we're not getting you guitar lessons.
Right.
And in kindergarten, I started getting guitar lessons. And I've always had like big hands for my age. So I kind of skipped over the baby songs. Like the first song I learned on guitar was Stand By Me. And I was like, there's a video of me at like 6, you know, singing and playing Stand By Me. And, you know, learning My Girl in like first grade and stuff.
That's awesome.
I was always doing like the talent shows, and my parents, I did like School of Rock, all these after school programs. And so my parents believed in me. They knew that it was a good outlet for me.
Right.
And then I will say, like, it was a big deal because they let me leave. I went to like a religious private school.
Okay.
And they let me leave that school to go to an arts middle school that I had auditioned for.
Okay.
Because they knew
that
this was what I wanted to do. And then I would say going into high school, it kind of got like up a notch, because that's when I started songwriting, not just doing music, but I started to put a lot together. And I think it was like other people were starting to take notice. So they were like, oh, this isn't just us being like a proud parent. This is like, other people
really
are,
doing this.
Yes.
Yeah.
And my mom, they're very hard workers. They own a business, you know. She always encouraged me to like put a little business card in like our, you know, community bulletin, and, you know, play for cocktail hour, whatever. You know, I'm 12 years old sitting there playing for, you know, $20, which is great money at the time.
Right.
And just getting experience, just getting my name out there. But I will say nobody in my family does music.
Right.
So it is kind of an uncharted territory. And I do think they are a little scared, you know, sending their daughter to Nashville and you have this dream, good luck.
Yeah.
But I think that they have supported me and they continue to believe in me.
That's awesome.
But like my dad's a surgeon, you know, so it's like you go to med school, you go to residency,
There's a clear path.
You know what's up.
Yeah.
But like I went to Belmont, I majored in songwriting. I've been writing for years, I gig, whatever, but it doesn't work like that. You know, you don't graduate and they're like, here's a publishing deal. You know, that would be lovely, but that's not how it works.
Right. No, I get that for sure. So at what time, or I guess what age did you start like having, you know, because it sounds like, I mean, you've been always a hard worker, you know, family dynamic, you know, has been good, support and whatever. When did you start having kind of like more of the mental like downside of things?
I will say when I was really young, like 2 or so, when I was a baby, I've been told that like all I did was scream, like literally screamed all the time.
Yeah.
Always.
Okay.
Bang my head in a wall. Like, so they were like, something's up.
Yeah.
But I couldn't talk, which thank God I can express myself and how I'm feeling better now. But looking back, I'm like, maybe I was screaming because I haven't really always liked what was going on, you know, up in here. But when I was about 7 years old, I started seeing a pediatric psychiatrist.
Okay.
So it's pretty young.
Yeah.
At the time, it was for a lot of OCD. I still struggled with OCD, but it was pretty severe at that point.
Okay.
So I remember like leaving elementary school. My mom would pick me up. We'd go to my doctor and I'd come back. And I remember that. And then when I went to middle school is when my anxiety really started to develop.
Okay.
I mean, I was going through a lot of changes. I went from this tiny little school with not a lot of diversity to a big middle school. Plus, you know, your hormones are changing, all the things. Right. So my anxiety was pretty hard. Yeah. But bearable. I will say, though, at 8th grade is when my depression really showed up. Yeah. And that was a very hard battle and continues to be. Yeah. But 8th grade was when I started going on medications and having more regular therapy. Right. And it was clear that like the skills that I had learned earlier, you know, deep breathing and like those were great, but that was not going to cut it. Like I needed more support. 8th grade was like the first time I was having suicidal ideations and whatnot, which is, now that I think about it, I'm like, that's really young, you know? Yeah. But all that to say, in high school, it was kind of like the best of all the things together, you know, it was OCD, anxiety, depression. I hadn't yet been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, but I knew I had bipolar tendencies, if you will. And was on medication, and med changes are really hard, you know, especially psychiatric medicine, not knowing, like, is this me? Is it that? Is it whatever? And I would find something that works for a while, but then your body gets used to it and then it stops working. And then you just kind of start that process over.
Right.
I did not help myself in that I turned to alcohol, which is a depressant.
Yeah. Yeah.
And really made matters worse, although at the time felt otherwise. And
that was around like 14, 15?
15 is like when I started kind of dipping my toes.
Yeah.
And then I would say it definitely escalated like 17, 18, 19.
Right.
Because I had more access to it.
Right.
So like I can't even imagine if I had been drinking and then I turned 21 and like I could legally do whatever I wanted.
Oh yeah.
But then in college, I was struggling a great deal with major depressive and anxiety disorders and wound up, you know, having to seek help, medical help, and to keep myself safe. And then I learned that I had bipolar disorder.
Okay.
Which was comforting in that it made some things make sense.
Yeah.
But it was just another thing to add to the list, you know?
Yeah.
And then there was successful med changes and unsuccessful med changes and sobriety and all of that to where I'm at now, which is I take medicine every day. I go to therapy every week.
Yeah.
I go to AA every week.
Yeah.
I, you know, move my body. I do all of this just to be, you know, where other people can just wake up and be at.
Right. 100%.
It's a lot of work to just keep Nikki alive, you know?
Yeah. So for everybody like listening and stuff like that to kind of understand too, did your parents has there been any like mental health issues, like history?
Not to the extent of me.
Okay. Yeah.
So I think they had some learning along the way as I did stuff. They always got me the best care that they could.
Which is great.
You know, they always believed me, which is huge. I had some really great teachers throughout growing up, like in school, who were really big supports in terms of mental health, who I knew I could, like, a trusted adult, which as a teacher now, I try to be that for children.
Which is huge, yeah.
But it's not like my parents had depression or anything like that. So even though they can be understanding, at my darkest days, it's like they can't relate. They don't know how it feels. And thank God they don't know how it feels. I don't wish that feeling upon other people, you know, but I'm sure it is scary to watch your daughter feel and say and do some of the things that I was feeling and saying and doing.
Yeah.
But, you know.
So was it, you know, was there a moment that you can remember that kind of like set it off even more so? Like you said, you got really into the depression around like, you know, 8th grade. Like, was it something that happened or was it just like a change? Like, what was that?
Well, I will say, you know, around 6th, 7th, 8th grade, that's kind of when social media started doing its thing. I remember Instagram came out. Yeah. And I was not allowed to have an Instagram account. And then when I finally did, I was, you know, you'd see things that you weren't invited to. And I felt very excluded. And I was never like bullied. You know, I always had friends. I always have been very loved. That was never kind of what it was about for me. But that didn't help those, you know, those feelings of that. And then,
what was it about for you?
Well, a couple things. I would say, so in like 7th and 8th grade, without getting into too much detail, there was 2 separate incidents that were pretty gory, graphic, murder-suicide situations of people that I knew, which you see that stuff on TV and you're like, that doesn't happen here. And then all of a sudden it happened here back to back, which was like a lot. And I was young. And at the time I didn't realize this, but now looking back, I think that's when at my head I went, oh, this is an option.
Yeah.
Suicide's an option. Here's an adult that I knew that chose to do that. Here's another adult that I knew that chose to do that. Yeah. And that was the first time that in my actual life I realized like that is an option. My therapist always says it is an option. Right. Like I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say it's not. Right. You know? But so I think in my head that like planted the seed of like people do this.
Yeah.
And that's a big, for me, like my why, if you will, like on my really bad days, I always tell myself, like, I don't want to be the reason why my students know what suicide is, because I don't want, those are the people that made me realize what suicide is. You know what I mean? And so that idea was put in me.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of what it's been when I've got into that place in my head is that I'm just tired.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't feel loved. It's not that I am unhappy.
Right.
Like, I have a great life.
Yeah.
But for people who don't understand, like, there's been times when, like, getting out of bed, brushing my teeth, taking a shower, the day-to-day things that are expected of you as a human.
Right.
When those don't feel like you can do them, the idea of doing nothing is really comforting.
Yeah.
And that's what it is for me. It's just like, I'm tired, not like tired like I need a nap. Like, I'm tired of life.
Yeah.
And I would just like to opt out. Like, that's what happens to me. And I can't speak for other people. But the times that I've been my most suicidal, I'm just tired. And no amount of sleeping can make me feel less tired.
Right.
And the options are do life or don't.
Right.
And life consists of some non-negotiables. Like, you do have to get out of bed, and you do have to go to work, and you do have to brush your teeth, and you really should shower. And when those things feel like you can't do them, then it's like, well, what's up, you know? And I will say, like, it sounds silly, but like celebrities and things in the media that have committed suicide, definitely like have had effect on me. Like, I remember one summer, like Robin Williams, and I loved watching his movie. I mean, obviously don't know him personally, but like, I love watching his movies. I loved watching like comedy from him. And then Kate Spade, like within the span of like a month or something, you know, and it just like kind of takes you aback. You're like, well, these are successful people who seemingly X, Y, and Z, and it's an option, and they chose that option. Right. You know what I mean? And so it's taken me a lot of therapy and a lot of years and a lot of time to realize I should consider all the other options first. A.
Yes, for sure.
And B, know what they are. Yeah. Because for me, I've finally found that there's a connection between my anxiety and my suicidal ideation. Yeah. So for me, once I pass like a certain threshold, this is how I can explain it best, a certain threshold of like overwhelmedness. Right. Instead of where I would say most people would say like, I'm going to go take a walk, or I'm going to breathe and come back to this tomorrow. Yeah. My head is like, well, if I kill myself, I don't have to do any of this. Right. But it's a very serious and real, like, that is the comforting thought. Yes. I go from A to Z without thinking about B and all the other things. Yeah. And it sounds appealing, and I could go on, and I got such a dark humor, so I'm like, try not to be, inappropriate. But no, I will say that, like, being able to stop and reflect and be like, okay, what could I do right now that's not that? Yeah. That's going to make me feel a little bit better. Right. And like, sometimes it's shitty. Sometimes I'm like, I don't want to go on a walk. Like, I'll be like going on a stupid little walk for my stupid mental health, but I'm going to do it mad. It's fine. Yeah. Or sometimes it's calling a friend and talking to somebody, or sometimes it's reading a book, or sometimes it's coloring. Like, all of those tools for me can help me. But there's still times where my brain jumps there. It's a malfunction in my brain. You know, it's not wired correctly. And I'm able to recognize that, which is great. The times that I know I need to like seek outside help is when that lie in my head starts to sound true. Yeah. Versus where I'm like, today where I could be like, that's obviously not a good idea. Let's do other things. But there's times where that voice is so loud. And it feels like that's the best choice, and I don't think I'm cured. This is something it's like, I always tell people, I'm like, it's a potentially fatal disease if left untreated. It's just like diabetes. Like, you have to take care of it every single day. Yeah.
It has to be an active choice.
Yeah. Because if I go a week, if I went like a week without insulin, you know what I mean? You'd be like, if I go a week without therapy and AA and taking care of me, I can really easily slip down to a not great place mentally. Yeah. Don't take my meds, like all that stuff.
Yeah. No, and that's why it's so, like, I feel like imperative for just anybody, like in terms of having a routine and regimen, because it is so easy to slide into those things. And I know like especially in my head with like, I call it like my like demons, right? That come in and they keep talking and stuff like that. And I know that it's not God because nothing that he provides has fear attached, right? So like, I'm like, no, why am I fearful? Why are you coming? Why are you talking to me? Like, and I remember sitting on this couch, and when I was starting, like my body's starting to like, basically like fail me or whatever with the whole bodybuilding and stuff, and the autoimmune stuff was coming up. I didn't know. I was sitting here and like I low key was having this meal, and I was just like lean ground beef and mustard and like, okay, anyway. And this is like, you gotta understand, the same meal I've had for like at this point so many years, like a year and a half, whatever. Anyway, and I'm eating it, and like I kind of like choked for a second. Like I was like, oh my God, like I'm like I'm literally choking. And I remember like when I swallowed it and finally I breathed for a minute, I was like, if that would have been it, like, okay. But you know what I mean? Like I was so low, but it was, again, what was I not doing? I wasn't journaling. I was only working out and then working, and then something was literally happening to me. So it's like, you know, again, it's that feeling of, just, what's the word? Like powerlessness? Like what?
I'll get to it. I don't want to interrupt you,
but that's,
it's so funny you say that. I mean, like I have a higher power, and I'm very like in touch with and pray and meditate. And a lot of that's come through my recovery. Yeah. But like the Serenity Prayer literally talks about, you know, courage to change the things you can, wisdom to know the difference. But that fear thing you were talking about, like so many of my issues I can trace back down to being fear, right? And at the end of the day, like God is everything or God's nothing. Right. So why am I being fearful if I'm faithful?
Right.
There's so much there. And I think that like, I don't know, it's just wild that you say that, because there's been times where, you know, I've literally dropped on my knees and been like, yo, I can't do this by myself, you know? And the thing that's always gotten me out of my darkest days is realizing that there's more resources. Yeah. When I've wound up, the first time I had to go to IOP, which is an intensive outpatient program at Vanderbilt, which I'm very lucky that I'm able to do that sort of thing. Yeah. I remember going in there and just feeling like I was like a cancer patient who had tried everything. Like I was like, okay, I've done chemo, I've done the meds, I've done everything, and I'm out of options. And so here I am, because I've been fighting this in my head a lot of days for a long time, years. And when I went in there and I found out like, well, actually here's a list of stuff you haven't tried out. Yeah. That might help you. Right. Immediately it was like, oh my God, okay. Yeah. You know, like there's help, there's options. Right. And what it's boiled down for me is like, at the end of the day, my like little slogan, if you will, is try again tomorrow. Yeah. Because I was like, I hold myself to very high expectations. I am a little hard on myself, you know, kind of a perfectionist. Yep. Have very lofty goals of me. But at the end of the day, the only thing anybody's expecting of me is to try again tomorrow. Like wake up and try again tomorrow. Yeah. That's all I have to do to not kill myself is to try again tomorrow. Right. And so like, if I'm feeling some type of way and it's 2 p.m., I'm gonna go to sleep and I'm gonna try again tomorrow. Yes. You know what I mean? Exactly. And like those 3 words have like gotten me through so much. Yeah. Of just like, that's all you gotta do when you really narrow it down to that. Yeah. You know?
For sure. And that's the thing. It reminds me of, I saw a reel, and it was like, I think like Tom Hanks and a few others, you know, celebrities or whatever. And they're sitting there and they said something about like, they basically were like, this too shall pass. So no matter if things are going great, things are going down, like is real bad, whatever, this too shall pass. And someone else had said something, it was more from a biblical thing I was listening to, but it was talking about what was it? It was like, we'll work on it tomorrow. Yeah. Like put it off till tomorrow. So it was one of those things where like, if I felt like my darkest and my saddest or whatever, cause I dealt with more of like, it was just, I would say it was just more depression because of the constant of like, everyone always watching my food, everyone always on me about my body, everyone, like it was a constant like of just why, you know, feeling like there was something people wanted to say, but they wouldn't say it. And that could be my own projections, that could be my own whatever. But I always felt like, the bigger girl, the this or that, like the girl that all the guys just wanted to like whatever with, it was like this person, this thing that was melded. I'm like, that this isn't me, but it was just like so far. And so I remember like in college, I had that moment driving and I was just so upset. And I was like, this could be it. Yeah. Just like whatever. Yeah. And it was just like, just wait till tomorrow. Like something, I'm sure it was God, but like an angel or whatever was just like, get home, deal with it tomorrow. Because I was upset. I was like, whatever. And it was one of those moments where like every time I've gotten that low, I'm like, just still. And so I love that you say that. Yeah. And I think you're like, try again tomorrow, because it really is so true. And the fact is there are so many tools. And I think just as humans, we're like, nope, I've done everything. I've tried it a million times, whatever. But it's like, maybe it's the millionth and one time.
Yeah, but it really can feel like that,
Yeah.
And like, my little sister got me a ring from Israel in Hebrew that said Gamze Lavod, which is this too shall pass. So it's funny that you say that.
Yeah.
And so I wore that every day for a long time. It served as a good reminder. But, and when you were talking about powerlessness, like jumping ahead a little bit, but like in terms of alcoholism, what got me to admit, I guess, that I was an alcoholic, because I was really convinced I was.
Right, yeah.
As, first step, there's a lot of denial there. I thought I just had alcohol abuse issues. Was that somebody told me like the definition of being an alcoholic is being powerless over alcohol. And I was like, say what?
Yeah.
Because I wasn't a daily drinker. I wasn't in my head the idea of an old man sitting at home drinking. But every time I did drink, I was powerless over it.
Yeah.
And I was able to recognize that. And so I was like, oh, I think I might be an alcoholic.
Yeah.
But that was wild to me, you know? Like,
well, and just having that information around it. And like you had mentioned about like being OCD, right? Well, I never knew that until literally like a few months ago that like OCD wasn't just
like neat freaky.
Yes. Cause I'm like, I'm not OCD. Like I was like, I don't like things like super clean. Like I don't like, or like whatever. And then my therapist was like, no, actually like this is kind of the things that it is.
It's
like
a huge misconception.
Yes. And no one had ever talked about it like that to me. And for lack of not wanting to be stuck in a box or like defined by anything, I was like, well, I'm not that. You know what I mean? And then when I looked at it and she was talking, she was like, you really do have, like, after we stripped away like grief and like things like that with like loss, she was like, I used to think that you were like really anxious, but like that's not what I'm getting. Like it actually is more like OCD. And then it made sense.
That does make sense, because like you're like, that seems like if you're having, from what I understand, if you're having those symptoms, that would make you feel anxious, or feel like anxious.
Right.
They can go hand in hand.
Right. I mean. But like I never, like I told her, I was like, I'm not like, it wasn't, the anxiety stuff was written from other things. Like that was like a false, like that was like after like the bomb exploded with like the fear or, the loss, it was like, oh, anxiety, depression. But I was like, yo, like from a real perspective, like I'm a very positive person.
Getting down to it.
Like if we really got down to it, I was like, I came out being positive.
I've never been, that's the thing. It's like, I've never been a positive gal. I'm always the half empty, and that's okay. Yeah. My older sister is like you, like she's very smiley, uppity, giggly, which is like, you need that. You need that in life. But it wasn't me. Right. I was always very much like, if I don't wake up when I wake up tomorrow, like if it doesn't, that's great. If that's God's will, you know, like I kind of was always just like, great. If I'm driving and something hits me, like all the better. I didn't have to do it to myself. Nobody's mad at me. Right. Like these are thoughts that I have, you know, but realizing that life's a lot more than just that. You know what I mean? And also the whole one day at a time thing is so annoying, but it's so true.
It is so true. And I wish that more people would implement it.
Because I future trip. You know, if I get too far down the road, I can talk myself into some crazy stuff.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Well, that's anytime I've had fear, it comes from future, like doing that, because I will get but then this and whatever. And then that's why I was just talking about on one of the other podcasts, like I sat there and I said like, but actually like right now, if nothing else ever happened, like I would be at peace with this. You know what I mean?
Being where your feet are, like being present, which is so hard when you're in your head all the time. Like for me, like I said, every day for a decade. Yeah. I've been battling thoughts in my head that you can't see on the outside, but it's exhausting because I'm spending all day doing that. And, realizing that like if you're able to ground yourself and be where you're at and not be thinking about what you could have done differently or what you still have to do.
Yes.
Then you can enjoy the moment.
Yeah.
But you can't enjoy the moment when you can't be in the moment because you're too busy thinking about the past or the future.
Yes.
And it's so much easier said than done.
Yeah.
You know, like I have had to learn so many grounding tools and exercises to like bring me to where I'm at now. Because in my head, I'm like 2025, we're in August, I'm setting up my classroom for next school year.
Yeah.
You know, or I'm in October and I'm like, okay, Nikki, it's Thursday.
Yeah.
It's Thursday.
But yeah, so talking about like, you know, staying at it one day at a time, but it's one of those things where this is why it is so important, like in the terms of like loving your body and like being present with like where you're at versus like where you could be, or like everyone living in the past. Like if you've noticed when people talk, right, they're talking about like how they used to look or how they want to look, not how they look right now. You know what I mean? Or that they hate how they look right now. So they want to live in both of those things, but that's not reality.
This is the body. My therapist calls it shooting on yourself.
Yep.
Like I shoulda, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
You know, and she's like, okay, Ann,
yeah.
you know.
Right. Well, and when we had the photo shoot, you know, a couple weeks back, when we did that, like it was one of those things where used to be I would have been like, oh, I should have done this, or I could have done this, or whatever. Yeah. After we were done, I was like, all right, see you. Like I'm on a little game day, you know, thing, whatever. And then I'm gonna go. I went to see a movie, like had dinner. Like it was such a beautiful day, and I was like, this is my version of like. I don't want to say perfect because there's not a perfect day, but like a pretty great day because people just showed up. We had fun. We laughed. Like people just like, you know, every different bodies loving themselves and getting to help share my story, you know, all this stuff and celebrating hard work. And I started that morning with clients, you know, and all that stuff. And it was just, it's taken me, I mean, like 7 years of business, you know what I mean? I'm being 31 years old, you know, really to be like, stop being so hard on yourself about, oh, you could have done this or you could have done that or whatever. And just being like, I felt like I was very like grounded in it. And like, we had a lot to do. We got it done, but it was like good, you know? And I just, for so long, I was so hard on myself and that perfectionist. And that's where that OCD stuff comes into play. And realizing that now of like, oh my goodness, like, why couldn't you have just, you know, again, showing yourself some grace in it? And because I did incredible things. And even when we look back at it, like this time 7 years ago, your girl was planning an entire fitness festival where people came. I had 15 sponsors and mentors when people didn't even know me yet. Like I had shirts, I had bands, I did Move Fit, I did another class, like all this stuff. And this was like right after I started my business, and then did an event that weekend to announce it, and did all the classes I was going to offer, had the logo, had the website, all the things, right? And you know, and I'm just like, that was incredible. And I guarantee you, I was like good with it, but I also was like, I should have done this or I should have done that, you know?
It's hard. I struggle with that. Like even at like my master's degree graduation, which was really difficult to do. My job was 22 when I graduated grad school. You know what I mean? Like I felt like I wasn't feeling how I should feel.
Right.
You know, I was like, I'm not, like everyone's saying they're proud of me.
Yeah.
I must, you know I accomplished things, but I'm not feeling that pride within myself, you know, and allowing myself to recognize when I actually like achieve something. Like, no, that kind of was a big deal. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like you can tell yourself you did well there.
Yes.
And not always be, you know, on to the next type of attitude.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, do you feel like in those situations, because I definitely relate to that, I feel like if I say it, then it's gonna go away. Like if I say like that I did it, like I did something, it's like it's gonna be take. That's kind of my anxiety. I'm kind of always waiting for the other shoe to drop type of thing.
I don't know. I always kind of just feel like, okay, Ann, you know, like other people do. You know, I kind of brush it off, or I'm like, could have been better, or you know, I'm still not at my end goal. That's a big one for me. It's like, okay, well, you don't have a publishing deal, and that's always what you've wanted to do. So what about X, Y, and Z, you know? Right. But you do have to celebrate the things along the way.
Yeah.
But it doesn't come naturally to everybody, you know?
No. I don't think it comes naturally to most people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I also think, too, that, like, people only find validation in the big things and not the little, like, quote-unquote little things, right? Like, for example, I have been finding more so, especially over this past month, that when I speak with, clients and I'm able to show up for them, or I'm able to give them advice, or I'm able to like be present for them when they don't have anyone else, like that right there should be enough.
Yeah. But celebrating small successes.
Right.
Yeah.
And even celebrating that, like, I woke up and did my workout and being like, yes, and feeling positive in that, or that I went and stepped out of my comfort zone or whatever. Right. When to other people that might not be a big deal, but to me it's everything, because for so long I didn't allow myself to do that. And it was just like, well, like I'm like, that's my job. Like I need to help them, like, whatever. Like, but I know that my purpose is so much bigger than that. And I have more of an impact than I even realize. And I have to continually remind myself of that and actively work on changing that mindset. Because at the end of the day, I never was really big on like positive affirmations from other people, because I was like, okay, like whatever, like, and so for me, like I'm finding now that really and truly, sometimes when I get to that dark space, like God will send a way where like someone random will message me and be like, hey, like I found one of your bands and I put it on today because I wasn't feeling my best. And that, that's somebody that has never paid for a session. Yeah. They've never paid for it, like, or anything like that, but they were impacted by the mission. Yeah. And that's how I feel like with your songs and things like that. Like that you can, that's.
I like being able to reach others.
Yes. In ways that you don't even.
That people need to, have heard.
Yes.
And I definitely feel like I get you on the whole like external validation, the whole being enough thing. Like that's the one I tell myself all the time. Like I am enough. Okay. But what does that mean? You could say the words, but what does that look like? And I, even I'll share this, but, in our vows, we did private vows where he wrote in a book and gave to me and I wrote a book, and the one time I was crying on my wedding day was when I was reading his vows, and part of it he said like, I want you to know you're enough. And I was like, like he gets me, like, and just like knowing that like that is something I really struggle with, and that like my life partner is like, no, like Nikki as is today, without a publishing deal, without $1 million, like is enough and worthy of all the love and all the everything,
Tyler.
I know. I literally like, I'm getting like teary-eyed thinking about it. Yeah. And I was like, like that was like one of the best parts is, and now I have that forever. I get to like have that note with me,
Yeah.
But when I'm singing and when I'm songwriting, or even like I share really publicly about some of my struggles that I know it makes some people uncomfortable, or they're like, oh, you're oversharing,
Who cares?
But in my head, if I was younger, I wanted to like, I didn't ever see somebody openly talk about their suicide issues. No. The only time I would find out if somebody was suicidal was at the obituary.
Right.
When they said, oh, they've lost their battle with depression.
Yeah.
And how many times do you hear of people that love them like, I wish you would have said something. Yeah. I wish you would have told somebody.
So I said, okay, I'm gonna start making people uncomfortable, but I'm gonna talk about it, because when I was in middle school and I was having those thoughts, nobody ever was posting about saying, hey, I struggle with this, but this is what I do to not do that.
Because it's fear of like being like locked up and being like put, you know what I mean? Like taken somewhere like a psychiatrist. Like, I mean, but seriously, because like, because again, like I have dealt with that as well and it's almost like, who can you share that with, who can you feel okay to whatever, to not take it and use it against you, because a lot of times, like while I was growing up, stuff, friends would use things against me, and it was just like you got quiet, and so you're like, okay, like whatever, and I will say this, when we were, because you came to the suicide walk, that was
and that was a beautiful event. I did so many of the things they offered there.
Yes. Yeah. And which was so special. And I loved seeing you there. And so when I did Move Fit there, as a part of just like the movement, and everything like that. And just to kind of lift spirits up. And when I was there, this little girl, was handing out, she's like 3 years old, but she was handing out these, and it's over there. It's behind that sticker right now, but it's like this posted in different colors. And so the mom came up and she's like, oh, here, hand it to her. She handed it to me, and it says, you are loved.
Yep.
And in this moment, I was at my brink. Like, this is like 2 months after the show. I'm about to head to my vacation. I had been planning for 7 years, or whatever. And I'm literally like at my wit's end, because I just had a whole event the day before, the suicide event. Like the only reason I did it was because it was that event.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I would have not done it if whatever, but literally being there and then her handing me that, I mean, I started crying.
Yep.
And because the you are enough thing is the same for me, like about like you are loved.
Yeah.
And because it's like, it's not that I don't feel love. It's almost that sometimes it just feels like it's taken for granted a lot of times. And I feel like I'm taking for granted a lot. And so then, or like it's expected.
We could use more Danny D's in the world.
Well, thank you. But like, you know, and so it's almost like sometimes it's expected now. And that's how I felt at that moment because I was going through my own health stuff. I was exhausted. I'm trying to give everything to everybody else. And like, I just needed to kind of get out. And that moment I was like, oh my gosh, like, thank you so much for this.
Yeah. And that's how like when I do post stuff and I get so many messages, you know, in my DMs or on Facebook Messenger of people that I've known for forever or that are in my community or that I had no idea struggled with some of the things I struggle with. And they're like, I would never say that, but thank you for sharing. Or I'm starting to go to therapy because you said of X, Y, and Z. Like,
to
that's
let it know
huge
it's okay.
to me. Yes.
Can I read something to you?
Yeah.
You've heard me read this before.
Okay.
But this is a perfect time to read it. And obviously, I'll give it back to you to end it out, but I have to throw this in there. It's exactly what you're talking about, right? If I were to get a tattoo, which I don't have one currently, it would be this poem on my forearm. The first part is in Coach Carter, which is a 90s kid movie that a lot of people knew, but the second half is really what is
I wasn't alive in the
big
90s.
deal. But when people start hearing the beginning of it, they'll be like, oh, that's in Coach Carter, but hear it out. Okay, so it says, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And then this is the best part. As we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others.
Yeah.
So you guys just having this conversation.
It's beautiful.
You know what I mean? Liberated other people to talk about it.
Yeah.
And that will liberate other people to talk about it.
That's like the biggest thing for me is like at the end of the day, even if I don't make it as a commercial professional songwriter, it's like I know I've written songs and words that have like, not to be dramatic, but like save people's lives.
Yeah.
There have been songs that I've listened to that have saved my life.
Right.
You know,
Yes.
there's a place for those types of things, songs that you need to cry to, songs that, you know, all of those things that I share online. Like when I was sober, I wasn't even a year sober and I went public with it, which was like, you might call it a no-no.
Yeah.
But for me, it was good for accountability.
Yeah.
But also to be like, hey, you can be a teenager and have alcoholism.
Yes.
I was like, oh, I can't even legally be an alcoholic. Like, you know, because I didn't see that. Nobody posts about that, you know? It's always like, oh, well, it's not alcoholism until you graduate. Like as if the day after graduation, you're going to stop drinking the way you did in college.
Exactly, yes.
But I think I've found that posting about like my mental health issues and about my recovery has given me an outlet, A, as a writer. But B, to connect to others. And even people will go up to my parents, like in my community back home, and be like, oh, like you're Nikki's dad, you know, you wrote X, Y, and Z on Facebook, or I sent this to somebody, you know. I think it's just cool to see that like somebody's alive and doing it.
Right. Exactly.
You're not hearing about it at my funeral.
Correct. And that's something too that I like to bring it back to like, you know, like loving your body and stuff. It's like when I started talking about this, everyone was like, okay, like it was a joke. Like no one took it seriously. And it was just one of those things where it was always like, no, people just want to like look better and like, you know, whatever. And I was like, no, like I genuinely like loved myself before everyone told me not to. And so I want to get back to that. Like that's who amazing. I am.
Yeah.
And so it was like, you know, and sticking with that and never faltering on that, like never dimming my light with that, like and in my darkest days and whatever, like these mottos and stuff, like continue to help me because I remember someone used to tell me like, oh, like why are you always fighting? Like was it like a fight? And I'm like, because when you out here and you
in the trenches
of like the fitness community of Nashville and Middle Tennessee and just
mental
in general,
health or whatever, you have to fight.
You do. Yeah. And it's again, it's I think they have a negative connotation like that, like it's always a struggle, but it's not even that it's a struggle. It's just that it's an active choice, you know, that you have to choose every day that, like you said, is not a luxury for some of us. And when you talked about with the addiction aspect of like alcoholism and stuff, that like when you go back to it, like you said, you transferred You changed for one thing for another. You changed for the food, right?
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people don't look at that as a serious thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Nikki drinking and stuff. Okay, it's a serious thing.
Yeah.
But then the food, oh yeah, have the pint of yours.
Yeah.
Go celebrate. Go live your best life. And it's like, but that is an addiction as well. And people who have not had to deal with that, it's again, it's something in your brain. You know what I mean? And that that I've had to actively work on over the years of like, I am more powerful than this. This is not my idol. This is not like, no, like I will not lean into this because that's not what's going to save me. You know what I mean?
I wrote something a while ago, but like when I was eating, you know, after I got sober, at first I was like, literally whatever it takes for me to not drink, I'm doing.
Yeah.
If that's ice cream, screw it.
Right.
Which to an extent.
Yeah.
But then I look back, I'm like, oh my God, I'm 6 months sober and I'm 50 pounds heavy, you know, whatever it may be. And it was like, whoa, in the long run, this is not going to make me feel good.
Yes.
You know, and I will say also like, I love that you said that like you've stuck with that. Like, so you've been doing this for 7 years now, which is amazing. And like such like an inspiration, even just as like a woman and an entrepreneur. And like in that sense, I'm like, damn, she's a badass. Okay. And like doing what you love and working for yourself. Like those are all amazing things.
Thank you.
But that you had this vision and now so many people believe in that vision.
Yeah.
And how it's like changed over time. You know what I mean? Like I love when you're like, oh, it's for everybody. Because like everybody. I was like, yes, you know, the whole fight for what you want thing, like I've used that now. Like when I'm like, oh my God, this music thing's so hard. I'm like, are you going to fight for it or what?
Right?
You know,
yes.
like, do you want this?
Yeah.
Because, you know, that's how you're going to get it, you know? Or even when I'm in the gym and I'm like, huffing and puffing on the treadmill and I'm 0.2, you know, miles away from whatever I need to do. I'm like, you better fight for it, girl.
Yes.
Or I do what I've been doing lately at the gym is like, I'll do affirmations when I'm doing my reps.
Love that.
So let's say I have to do 12, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, sis, you should be able to come up with 12 things you love about yourself.
Right.
And so if the reps start getting hard or if I stop running out of affirmations, I'm like, pause.
Right.
Because one of these is messed up right here, you know? So I'm like, I'm strong, negative push-up.
Yes.
I'm like,
I love that.
And I do it in my head, but it's kind of like, it's double. Like, I'm like, okay, I'm fulfilling my mind and my body. Yeah. I'm trying to make the most of my time.
Which is awesome. And I love that so much. And again, it's, I think that so many people think that like, again, it's not about that you get to the point where it's like, okay, it's just easy. Like, it's easy to come up with something you love about your body or whatever, right?
You start to believe it.
You start to believe, exactly.
That's
and same thing with the movement. You start to see the benefits. You start to see all of the things that come with it that you're like, oh yeah, like this does make sense. I need to continue doing this. Yeah. And all of the mottos that I have, like the get your movement in, love your body throughout, fight for what you want, that everybody hears and hopefully embodies, like, those were the things that helped me. And like, because when I started my journey, it was 12 years ago. And when I literally was sitting there, like, that's what helped me get out of bed. That's all those things that you guys are going through now. So like when I literally say like, I've lived it, when I literally say I've been there, and like, I have new clients that are like, I'm just so lonely. So whatever, I'm like, I know, I get it. Like, you know what I mean? I really do. And it just, I feel like it's so much bigger. And, than what I ever thought it could be. Yeah. And it's been so beautiful to have amazing people that I've worked with, and even clients I still talk to today that live across country. And like, you know, one's pregnant right now, telling me about her trimester, you know, all of her stuff. Like, you know, and it's so great because it's like, you know, they will forever, I mean, they continually be like, we went on this hike and I was fighting for what I want. Yeah. Or like, you know, he proposed and like, you know, I feel so good about loving my body throughout. And, you know, and it's just like, wow, like at the end of the day, like, I am just so glad that I've found my purpose. And that doesn't mean that it's easy. Doesn't mean that I'm not having days that are doubt, like I doubt myself. And that's not what it is. It doesn't become this, oh, I'm always motivated or I'm always whatever. Yeah. It's still an active choice.
Absolutely.
And more people need to see that. And so that is why when you look back at my stuff, why I would post a selfie. You know what I mean? Like a lot of times it was for myself and I was just like posting whatever. And then I started realizing that like nobody was really doing that because they weren't keeping it real. And then it's more so now, like it's still for myself, but then like I see people doing that. Like some people like, you know what I mean? They'll do like their flex and whatever. And then and it's just like, it is contagious.
You have to do it for yourself though. And you know what I mean? Like I always say, like, I'm not sober for Tyler, I have to be sober for Nikki, or it's not going to work.
Right.
Same with the working out. Same with the everything else. You know?
And that was the thing, is you had decided that that's what you wanted when you came to see me.
Yeah.
And that's why I always tell people, I'm like, the way that you'll be successful in this is like, you have to decide. And I talk about this. I don't know if I talked about it in this book that is, now out on Amazon. But basically, like I said that like everybody else was telling me how to be. Everyone else was telling me how to live, eat my food, whatever. And I had to step away from everyone and be like, when I decide, that's when I'll start.
There's like some sort of like, for lack of a better term, like come to Jesus moment.
Yes.
Where you're like, okay. And for me, I think it was like, I had gone at this point to another program at the psychiatric hospital called PHP, Partial Hospitalization Program. Saved my life, was great. Okay. But, it didn't cure. I didn't walk out and then I feel $1 million better. You know, I walked out and I was safe.
Yes.
But I had this moment where I was like, nobody, not in a bad, but nobody's coming to get you.
No.
Life's not lightening up. So either you're going to get stronger, you're going to get more resilient and be able to handle life on life's terms, which is rough.
Yeah.
Or you can peace out, because I'm like, I didn't sign up for this.
Right.
Nobody, when you brought me in this world, you not tell me I had to pay taxes. You not tell me I had to work, like do laundry. Like nobody told me this.
Right.
But I'm here, and I would like to believe I'm here for a reason.
You are.
And with that being said, it's like, okay, Nikki, it's up to you, And in my head, I was like, what does the ideal me look like? Yeah. Not in terms of body, but what does she do every day?
Yeah.
What does she, she moves her body. Yeah. She's able to meditate. She can pray. She goes to work. She gets out of bed without like feeling like it's the end of the world. Like all of those things that sometimes you take for granted.
Yeah.
Just like kind of envisioning that and being like, okay, what steps do I have to take to get there?
Right.
And it's hard because it's like, on one hand, I never even pictured being 24.
Yeah.
So it's like, I didn't really know what she would look like because I thought I was going to be gone way before her now, you know? And I still feel that way at times. Sometimes it feels more of like a win than an if. Yeah. It's like, okay, if I've thought this more days than not for, a decade in my life. So eventually I'm going to, give in, whatever. But you have to fight that. I mean, even like for me, my first tattoo that I got, which was it was a big deal for me to get a tattoo. Like my family does not, we don't do tattoos.
Right.
But I got this semicolon, which if anybody knows, like Project Semicolon, it's about like, basically you could have ended the sentence, but you kept going. Yeah. And I'm a writer too. So I was really passionate about it. And my parents were like, you know what? If you need to see that on your wrist to keep going every day, get the tattoo.
Yes.
You know? And it serves its purpose. It's my little reminder. You know what I mean?
No, I do. Yeah. 100%. Because literally when I say I look at these bands every day, like that helps me because like I tattoos. I can't for now.
I know. But, and somebody told me, they're like, you can get a really nice bracelet with a semicolon on. I was like, I'm tattooing.
Yeah. No, I'll have like an LYB at one point, I'm sure. But no, but it's one of those things where it's like, I look at that. I look at my picture, the Love Your Body poster. Like I look at these things around me that helps me stay grounded and being like, like this is what you're meant to do. Like you are to set the example, all these different things. And for, and to be able to be your best and to help, like to be able to help others, you have to be your best, You
can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly.
That's what my mom always says.
And exactly. And and I will say, as we're coming to an end and everything, that a couple things that I want to point out, but I think that a lot of times, if any trainers are listening to this, they may have been like, with all the heavy stuff, right, that you've talked about. And like you obviously confided in me that I knew this while we're like, training and stuff like that, may not have been like, okay, well, like been able to like handle it or been able to whatever. And I would actively pray to be like, okay, how can I help Nikki the best? Like, how can I,
that warms my heart.
But you know what I mean though? Like, because I knew what you needed and I could kind of fill that out. Yeah. And so it was one of those things of just,
You're like, use me to get, yes.
And so that was something that I'm so glad that God was able to give me like that, you know what I mean? And then the other part of it is that like genuinely, and I know like you only have to hear from yourself, and hearing from others doesn't really mean that much, but genuinely, like if you were not around, it would be very sad. And, and I've thought about that, and
I appreciate you saying that.
And
No,
and so you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that. I just think about it a lot.
Me too.
So we get it together, but like, not even just you, but I mean for like
generally,
just because you know, like I said, and it definitely, when I see just how much of a light you are, but I know that you can't really see it.
Yeah,
it's for me to be like, oh man, like that light wouldn't be here. I'm like, that's just not a fun time. You know what I mean? Like that's not the vibe.
It's so nice. Like I do appreciate you saying that, because it's really easy for me to be like, who would notice, or like literally my little self up here is like, well, she didn't come down to Florida for your wedding. Like, is she going to come down for your funeral? Like, literally, this is the way my head works.
If I would have already paid $1,500 for the sponsorship, I would have been there.
No,
okay?
but
I would have used that for the plane ticket and would have came in first class bougie. Like, it's fine.
No, I mean, I appreciate you saying that. It can be hard, and it's like, you know, tomorrow's not promised, whatever. Yeah. But in terms of like you saying like, you just wanted to help me the most you could, and you have. You seriously have. You've given me tools that, like, I know I'm going to take with me. Like, it's been one of the best investments in myself, was, like, deciding to just, like, take this leap of faith and, like, doing the damn thing. Yeah. You know? And I just feel like, even, like, with me for AA, like, that's helped me kind of get in the mindset of, like, how can I best be of service to others? Service work is a huge part of the program. And I get so much joy out of doing those things for others that like I never would have thought of and capable of. Like people always joke around being like voluntold to do stuff by their sponsor. Like that's happened to me.
Yeah.
But then at the end of it, you're like, dang, like that kind of felt good. That was actually great for everybody involved.
Yes,
like, you know, whatever. So it's just wild the way that stuff works out, you know?
Yeah.
And I feel like God, like obviously has a bigger plan, obviously knows what they're doing, you know, but it's just hard. Cause sometimes I'm like, okay, but have you thought about my plan? You know, like I'm like, the timeline isn't timelining the way Nikki wants it to. Yeah. And then things work out and you're like, thank God they went this way and not the other, you know, whether it was with a partner or with school, like I transferred, you know, all this sorts of stuff that I didn't picture happening. That happened, that like, thank God, if I hadn't transferred, I wouldn't have met Tyler, you know, like just all this stuff. Right. If I had started at Belmont originally, because I had gotten in originally, I still maybe wouldn't have met Tyler because we had a class together that I wouldn't have taken that semester if I had taken, you know, it's like all that, everything leads to something.
Yeah, which is great. Yeah, and I think it's good to remember that. Yeah, amongst everything, and with all your you know aspirations and all your goals and everything, which are so amazing. And I know that it's going to be, you know, you're going to do amazing things, and you already are doing amazing things every day. And like I said, I just appreciate you for being a part of the community, for repping always. You know, you set the example, like I said, for other people you don't even know, and by them just seeing you and seeing like, dang, like she actually like fought for it. And that's so cool.
Well, thanks for helping me stick around.
Of course. Yes, you're welcome. You know, I will continue to help you stick around. I'm always here for you. I know you're like a person I could reach out to if I need, you know, no matter what. Yeah. And that's like rare and appreciated. So, well, thank you, Nikki. That means a lot. And I really do. I see you being just like in my life for a very long time. And I just love it. So it makes me happy. And I can't usually say that about like everybody, but like, you know, I really do think that you're just meant on this earth for so many amazing things. So I appreciate you. And I have to ask real quick, what is something that you love about your body?
Okay. I love my eyes.
Okay.
And I love my butt.
Yes.
I love lots of other things, but I would say those are up there.
But how cool is that to say? I love lots of other things.
I know. You know? Right?
And that takes time, and you're there, girl. You're there. It's beautiful. Thanks. All right. Until next time.